Good evening, everybody. It is August 1st, 2025. I haven't made a video all week. Don't want to make excuses, but I'm just going to say my fiat life has really been draining me this week, so I have not got around to make any good content or anything. So today I did get a chance to listen to a podcast by Bitcoin Paula. She has a YouTube channel here, and I think she's on other social media platforms as well. But it was a very, very sad and somber interview. And the reason being is it was a couple that lost or was scammed out of 7 Bitcoin, which is upwards of $800,000 this day and age. And I'll get into the details of how they got scammed and why and what you need to watch out for. But just a moment of pause for them and the absolute stress and discouragement they have to be feeling right now. It's incredibly sad situation. So I want to preface this by saying, if you're thinking of getting into Bitcoin, if you're new to Bitcoin, you've been around a little bit, or you consider yourself knowledgeable, you know how to do transactions, you know how to do cold storage, you think you're a maxi, whatever, I don't care who you are, if you're watching this, you need to go over and watch that video. There's a lesson to be learned for all of us. There's reminders to be heard. And if you are truly a maxi, then you understand that the key to being successful in Bitcoin is remaining humble. Becoming humble, remaining humble. Because it is absolutely powerful and it is absolutely incorruptible. So if you make a mistake and you think you can bend the rules to, correct that mistake, you're going to be disappointed because you can't. Okay. And that's part of what makes Bitcoin great, is you can't change it. So let me give you a quick rundown of what happened. This guy is somebody who I would consider actually a fairly knowledgeable Bitcoin user. And I don't mean that in a condescending way at all. I mean that in a very positive way, because he had, a ledger device and kept Bitcoin in cold storage, which I would say puts him in the 1% of the Bitcoin community, really. Most people do not take those steps to do that, because you have to buy a hardware wallet, you have to learn how to use it, and you have to pull off the transactions and take that kind of leap of faith. Most people that interact with Bitcoin buy it through an ETF, they buy it through an exchange and just leave it in there and brag to their buddies when it goes up $10. And then, when it drops below their initial investment, they, quietly cry about it at night and sell and go back into fiat and never talk to anybody about that again. So very few people, very, very few, know Bitcoin, understand Bitcoin, and do true cold storage. So I put this guy up there in knowledge for sure. So that should be a warning if you think you know what you're doing. And not only did he just have a ledger, but he recognized that the ledger was not the greatest cold storage option. So he opted for a cold card queue and using Sparrow wallet on his computer, which at this point in time, August 2025, is the gold standard for Bitcoin security. Cold card queue and Sparrow wallet. They are the best for functionality, security, all those types of things. That's not saying there isn't other good hardware and software, but those two are some of the best options right now available to people. So this guy wasn't making bad decisions by doing that. And he was doing that and becoming more comfortable with them and learning the software and hardware and all that. So he established the wallet in Sparrow and had the private keys for it. And the way that he described the situation was he got into a place where he needed to send some money, and he was having issues with Sparrow and his hardware wallet. And I probably know what the issue was, but he was probably trying to sign a transaction in Sparrow and doing it the air-gapped way with a QR code on his cold card queue. And the thing about laptop or webcam cameras, things like that, is the resolution is absolutely terrible. So he was probably having issues with Sparrow picking up his QR code to sign the transaction. And that in itself is not a huge issue, aside from the fact that you can't sign a transaction. But it isn't the reason that he got scammed or anything like that. It just, he just needed to figure that part out and he would have been fine. But so, I think he was in a position where he needed to send money. So he was trying to think of alternatives, and he ended up turning to the App Store to see if there was a Sparrow, phone application. Maybe he could use his phone camera and it would work better, something like that. And unfortunately, he found one. And it looked legitimate, as Sparrow logo, it says Sparrow Wallet. And I don't know if it was on Apple or Android, but it was in an app store and he downloaded it to his device. That was absolutely malware, corrupt, fake software. So, disclaimer from this video, as of August 2025, there is no such thing as a Sparrow mobile app. So if you see one, do not touch it, do not download it, do not give it any of your information. It is absolutely fake, and you will be scammed just like this. So Sparrow only exists on Windows desktop, Linux, and Mac OS. Okay, so no mobile applications yet, and someday maybe, but you need to keep in tune with what's going on from trustworthy people to know if that's actually true or not. So this guy downloaded the app, thought everything was good, logged in, and wanted to send his Bitcoin, and it asked him for his private keys, his 12 or 24 words. And again, this guy, thinking that he was doing everything right, entered that information, thought he was signing the transaction and everything was good, went back over to his desktop application in Sparrow and saw that his wallet had been completely cleaned out instantly. So what he had done and what he had realized was that he gave somebody through this application his private keys. They took his private keys and set up a transaction and broadcasted it to the network, moving his Bitcoin from his Bitcoin addresses in his wallet to one of theirs. And once that transaction is confirmed, there's absolutely no way, nothing this guy could have done to take it back. It's gone. The Bitcoin's gone forever. And I really can't even just imagine the feeling. It's nightmarish, honestly. I do feel really, really poorly for the family involved. And I just absolutely detest and have anger against thieves and scammers. It's horrible. But there's steps that you can take and lessons you can learn from this to avoid this in the future. And unfortunately, this guy probably knew a little bit about what he was doing, but not enough. And it cost him. So first thing to know, most important, is your private keys are your Bitcoin. Think of it that way. So whatever's in a software application or your hardware device, whatever, that's not your Bitcoin. Those words, wherever they are your Bitcoin. So they cannot be seen, they cannot be given out, they cannot be typed into the internet, they cannot be messed with. They need to be protected at all costs privately, and only you need to keep them, or whoever you want to have control over that Bitcoin. So, think about that, because if you're the only one that knows them and you die or something happens to you, they're gone. So there's nuance and intricacy to Bitcoin's cold storage. And unfortunately, this guy learned a hard lesson for his family. So I really hope they can recover from it. But here's what you need to do. First, you need to keep in tune with what's going on in the network. I know that there's no Sparrow wallet app for phones, so I would have never downloaded this. He probably didn't know that. And, that's a result of not being aware of what's going on and following the right people that are giving out this information freely. There's tons of, YouTubers out there that are trustworthy. You need to follow them and start listening to them. They have these conversations and say things like, yeah, there's no such thing as Sparrow Mobile, whatever. So you need to find out who those sources are and keep plugged in with what's going on with Bitcoin, because this stuff changes all the time. Second fatal error is you need to verify your software and hardware. So only buy hardware from reputable vendors and their secure websites. The good vendors will send you hardware that is verified, sealed, and secured, like ColdCard. CoinKite's the supplier for those. And then your software, you need to keep up to date, and you need to verify all of it. So the Sparrow desktop application actually has ways that you can verify that your version of Sparrow is not only up to date and current, but it's legitimate. Okay. So if you need help doing that, I highly encourage you to Google and YouTube that and find some sources. There's a lot of tutorials out there from different YouTubers on how to verify that your version of Sparrow is actually legitimate and not malware. So you need to do that. And then, finally is you need to protect your keys at all costs. Your keys are the Bitcoin. Absolutely. So, you should never be typing them in and putting them anywhere that is beyond your control. Because as soon as you do that, you've compromised all the Bitcoin associated with those keys. So, anyway, it's a really good interview to watch. It's really hard to watch because you can just feel the pain in their voices. It's terrible. It really is. I hope they can rally from it in some way. Unfortunately, the Bitcoin is gone forever. If you're in Bitcoin, you know that. And there's not much that can be done in that way, but they may find a way to, recover their stack as far as, earning it all over again, getting donations. I don't know, something. I hope they don't give up. I hope it doesn't discourage them to the point where they abandon it. Because ultimately, it wasn't an issue with Bitcoin. It was an issue with active scammers preying on people, which will always have that, whether you're in fiat or you're in Bitcoin. And, lack of judgment or full understanding of what was happening in a situation. So you need to be incredibly vigilant. You need to send transactions, especially, like they are the most significant and important thing in your life. Because when you sign with your private keys, a send transaction, you need to know what that actually means. You are giving up the rights to that Bitcoin, handing it over to somebody else on the network. And, the final piece of that is wherever that Bitcoin address is, if it's within your control, meaning you're sending Bitcoin to yourself, you need to verify that address is 100%, 120%, double, triple, quadruple checked that it's accurate. Because if you send to the wrong address, there's no going back, okay? The other thing you need to know is who's on the other side of that address. If it's yourself, that's easy to verify. But if you're paying for something over the internet, how do you know that person is going to reciprocate with whatever you're buying? So you got to think about this stuff very carefully. You could send Bitcoin to an address and think that, something's going to show up in the mail or whatever. You're buying a service or whatever, and it not come through because it wasn't a legitimate website or a legitimate person. It was a fake address, right? So you got to be really careful from this stuff. Don't fear it. Learn it. And most people can overcome the learning curve of Bitcoin and be very successful with it. And this guy was a lot further along than most people, so consider that. If you think you know what you're doing, this guy, had a decent setup, and unfortunately it's just a lapse of judgment and a scam that presented itself at the right place and right time to be successful over this guy. So, the only thing I'll close with is that Bitcoin is a continuous journey, and these threats aren't going to go away. In fact, they're going to be more prevalent and more sophisticated than what you've seen so far. So AI And, the internet and all that type of stuff is just getting more and more difficult to know what's real. So you have to find trustworthy people that have your best interests at heart and will do the right things to teach you Bitcoin the right way. And that is worth its weight in gold or worth its weight in Bitcoin, which is nothing. So it's kind of funny, but you need to find a tribe and find people that have gone through the steps and learn from this, and you need to learn from them and make sure you're doing the right thing before you get too far down the road and you make a mistake. So anyway, I'm going to tie it up there. Again, go to Bitcoin Paula's YouTube channel, watch it, learn from it, and prayers for that family. I hope they can recover. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there. Thanks. See you in the next one.